Well, it's good to have a couple of off days today after that really embarrassing loss on Monday night. For today's episode, we're going to get into a couple of more ways as to why or how Ron Hextall has really screwed over this team this season. A couple updates when it comes to trade stuff with the Jeff Petry rumor, and then a nugget from Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman. All that plus so much more is coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. And, of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. So let's jump right into it. Apologies if my voice is a little weird. I don't know if any of you all get this in your mouth. These annoying canker sores that are near your gums, up there, down to the sides and stuff. I have one on the right side of my mouth, and it is affecting my ability to speak a little bit. So I apologize if my voice is a little weird. But let's get into just how Ron Hextall has really screwed this team over in multiple ways this season. Someone sent me a tweet last night after the game, and I did a little bit of research on if I can go back here and find it. Because I originally put out, I'm not blaming the core for the failure so far this season. The top six has shown up. Chris Letang has shown up. It's other parts of the roster that have really sunk this team, and that's the GM's fault. And I will stand by that. If you are blaming the top six and you are saying the Penguins' problems are because, they brought the gang back together, they brought the core back, they should have went out and signed Vince Trocheck and John Klingberg and all that, I am sorry. You are deranged and you cannot see the forest for the trees. Those people that think like that, they have probably only watched 2 games this season. Those people do not know that Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby have played every game this season, and they had well over a point per game. Chris Letang, had a little bit of a rough start. I think he's been playing a much better hockey as of late. And, Jake Guentzel and Rickard Rakell have been very good as well this year, as well as Jason Zucker. So again, bringing back the core is not, and has never been the problem. It's that I will stand by that. You look at the stats. I mean, they are right there for you to see. And I got this tweet back from, his name is Canadian Pens on Twitter, Canadian Pens fan. He said, like I said, when $8.7 million is your highest AAV and you cannot field a half-decent team with $74 million with the rest of your cap space, there are no excuses. There just aren't. And that got me thinking. So I went to the Penguins cap friendly, and I looked at, the overall money that they have tied up to the top 4 players, Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and Guentzel. They have $28 million tied up to those 4 players, and excuse me, they still have no cap space. How is that possible? Heck, we can even go this a step further. 8.7 million, 7.1 million for Evgeny Malkin. That is what? 15 million, basically. That's not even 16 million combined to your 2 franchise icons. You want to up that a little further? We'll go to Chris Letang. That's 21, 22 million. In reference, in comparison, look at the Toronto Maple Leafs. Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, Morgan Riley. They take up well over half of their salary cap space. And they just figured out a way to go out and get Ryan O'Reilly from the St. Louis Blues. Teams like that are still figuring out how to get good players under the salary cap. But the Penguins can't because, their GM screwed them. You had all of the right pieces in place. I can take this a step further. You had Rickard Rakell there and Jason Zucker. That's only $39 million to all those players. Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Guentzel, Rakell, and Zucker. That's $39 million. That's not even half of your salary cap space. You have all of the hard work done when you're Ron Hextall, and you're telling me you still screwed up the rest of that roster? It makes no sense. And you had cap space this summer if you wanted it. You didn't have to go out there and sign Kasperi Kapanen. You didn't have to go out there a couple years ago and sign Brock McGinn to 4 years and almost $3 million per. You didn't have to give Jeff Carter that extension only halfway through the season last year and have it be your first extension when you had so many other deals to take care of first. But he did. And those 3 deals plus a couple others, I'll even throw Jan Rutta in there. I think he's been fine, but it was also just an unnecessary signing. You add all of this up plus other signings as well. Look at how much money Jeff Petry's making, but he's kind of been average this season. It's no wonder why the GM is the real big one to blame here. I will definitely hear arguments for Mike Sullivan. I don't think he's been that good of a coach this season. His deployment has been spotty at best. His love for Brian Dumoulin is probably a bit too much. His love for Jeff Carter is way too much. But, show me a coach outside of John Tortorella who would maybe scratch someone like Carter. And, I don't really know. I was trying to finish off that stand. I think you all know where I'm going with that. Show me any other coach who would do that. And, I'll make you a millionaire, I guess. It's just, there aren't many that are going to do that just because they have so much respect for that player. I know that's probably not the answer you want to hear. I'm just trying to give you all the rationale behind it. Excuse me. So, you add all this up, and again, it's really the GM's fault that they are this bad this season. You didn't need to go out and trade Matheson for Petry. You didn't need to go out, and trade John Marino for a player who right now is not even in the NHL. You didn't need to go out there, and sign that entire third line to contracts. Teddy Bluger, you could have traded him during the offseason. You decided to keep him. That's looking really foolish right now as well. You could have traded Brian Dumoulin over the offseason. They decided not to. But when it comes down to it, you had money to play with, and you have all of your good pieces in place this offseason. You brought back the top 6. You brought back your number 1 defenseman. Your number 1 goalie was signed. Those are the hard pieces when you are building an NHL roster. Everything else after should be easy. I'm sorry, I don't give a lot of these GM sympathy when you have all these pieces in place. The same thing I would say goes for Rutherford when he screwed up the outer edges of the roster. The same thing has happened here with Ron Hextall, except it's just been put at an amplified degree because of how bad the team has been this season. And a lot of those moves in the bottom 6, those are his guys. Brock McGinn, his guy. Jeff Carter, his guy. Kasperi Kapanen, Rutherford's guy, but who decided to extend him when he didn't deserve it? Ron Hextall. 4th line. Josh Archibald, his guy. I will say this. He played well in the early parts of the season. He's not doing much right now. And when he's not scoring, you're really not noticing him much out there, which is unfortunate because he did have a really good first half before he got hurt. Ryan Poehling, he's been hurt, which stinks. Drew O'Connor, ups and downs for him. Teddy Bluger, he's not doing nothing. He's become a meme at this point because he cannot score to save his life. You decided to bring back the same goaltender tandem when you easily could have went out there and signed someone to help Tristan Jarry a little bit because he's been banged up throughout his career. You add all that up and you get a very, mid team, as the kids like to say. It's another word for average if you are a little bit older. That's where we are. And I think that's part of the reason why they haven't made a move yet, because, part of me thinks he actually does like this team. Another part of me thinks, he doesn't really know how to make all the money work because he screwed himself with a lot of these deals. And I also go back to a tweet that I saw last night from Jesse Marshall. If I can find, actually, I'm trying to find this tweet here from Jesse Marshall. Yeah. He talked to Charlie O'Connor of the Philadelphia Flyers beat on The Athletic. And he said, the issues that were persisting on and on during Hextall's tenure, players like Valtteri Filppula, Andrew McDonald, head coach Dave Hextall, but it's different with Mike Sullivan. He said he did not do anything at all, and he refused to believe that these were the issues, and he made his bid with them. And that is exactly what he is doing. Jesse even summed it at the bottom. That is exactly what he is doing right now with the Penguins' issues. He's refusing to see the third line as an issue. He keeps saying, I like my team on paper, blah, 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 blah. But again, that doesn't mean crap. You go off what they're doing on the ice. I know he is not stupid enough to see that this is, how do I want to say this? I know he is not that stupid to see that, oh yeah, this isn't working. Of course he knows that. He's not going to go out there and say it to the media and all that, but I'm sure him and Brian Burke are probably like, okay, the bottom six is not working. We need to get an upgrade or two. But, it's just something, maybe some of the prices are a bit high right now. But he's made his own bed. I don't think he's going to be coming back after this season. I'll say that. But, he is the main reason why this team is where it is right now. That's really the summary of this first segment. It's not good enough. It hasn't been good enough all season. And, he's lying. He made his bed and he's lying in it right now. But that wraps up this first segment. Coming up in the second segment, we're going to get to a trade rumor that I saw today from Pittsburgh Hockey Now and why, just don't believe everything you see on the internet. But before I get to that, the midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, the America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets if your first bet does not win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Right now, the NBA is considered to be on their all-star break. But later this week, the Lakers are playing the Warriors. I might be a little bit bold and take the Lakers money line on that. I think LeBron is, he's going to be playing in that. I think he's going to really try to lead the Lakers to the playoffs in this final stretch of the season. And, I'm also doing this because I grew up a little bit of a Lakers fan. I've just grown out of love with the NBA a little bit. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA and Locked On. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes Murdo. Follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So let's jump right into this. So I did see a rumor today. This came from Dan Kongursky of Pittsburgh Hockey Now, and he ran a story on his site that says, if I can just make sure I have this here, ready to go. Penguins have made Jeff Petry available for the NHL trade deadline. I'll say this. I checked in on that, talked to a couple people that probably more in the know than I am, close to the team. Based on what I've heard, I'd be surprised if he was actually available. That's all I got. Again, I've said this every time. I do not claim to be Elliot Friedman, Pierre Lebrun, Darren Dreger, or any of those people. I have not and will never have those kind of sources probably. But, I do hear stuff at times. I do have people that I can check in with and, that are closer to the team than I am. I mean, be like, hey, have you heard this? So I checked in with a couple people and they have not heard that. So I'm kind of debunking at this point. I really don't think it makes any sense to move Petry this deadline. If you do that, you're kind of just, you're kind of waving the white flag. And these kind of go together. Your defense gets worse because you don't have that good of a puck mover on your right side. And B, you're kind of waving the white flag. Unless you're getting Timo Meier back. Or something, Jacob Strickland maybe, but he also plays on the opposite side. So I don't really know how that would work. But, I just don't really see them trading Petry. And I was discussing this with my buddy today as well. I don't think a lot of teams are going to look around the league, and especially someone who's 35 and he's making 6.5 per year, and they're going to say, oh yeah, that's him. Like, oh, that's the guy to go get. No, I don't. I think if the Penguins were to trade him, it would have to be like a salary dump kind of deal. And besides, they're going for it this year. They also just acquired him over the offseason. I can't see them giving up on him 50-plus games into the season. I think that's a little ridiculous, if you ask me. Again, it only makes sense if you're getting someone equally as good or better on the right side. Maybe you could, maybe in a Strickland deal, but also at the same time, again, he plays on the left side. He's not going to play on the right side. You're kind of just, you're adding someone better on the left side, but you're also subtracting someone that was good on the right side there. I think in the article, Kongursky says, you have to give to get with these kind of deals, but I don't really think teams are going to be looking at acquiring Jeff Petry. Definitely do not think that. I think Petry, look, he's been fine. Has he been as good as I thought he would be? No. Has he been as bad as some other people thought he would be? Also no. He's just been perfectly average. And that's probably not good enough because he is making over $6 million per year. He's a bit older now. But he has been fine in the games that he's played, but I still want him to reach that level. You saw his game come to a good level on Monday night against the Islanders where, he really let that shot bomb from the point. He also keeps things very simple on the power play, which I like. He was never really touted as a good player on the power play when he was coming over to Pittsburgh in the trade from Montreal. But from what I've seen this season, he looks like he's been doing it for years. Keeps things very simple. His puck movement is crisp along the point. He only does a couple of passes before he fires a one-timer. And you saw that last night. The second unit keeps things simple. He gets the puck, bombs a one-timer, goes off the crossbar. Jason Zucker's able to clean up the garbage. You don't see as much of that from someone like Chris Letang, just because I think he's always trying to set up Malkin and Crosby. And I understand that because those two are also surefire Hall of Famers. But sometimes I do want to see Letang keep it a little more simple on the power play. And I'm liking what Petry is doing on that unit. So I think he's definitely been improving there. I like the Pettersson-Petry pairing. I think it's been one of the best second pairings in the league this season. So I think that's another reason why he's probably not going to get traded. Again, I think it's kind of just, I think it's kind of nonsense. That report, I think Dan's a good guy, at least, but at least from what I've heard, I just don't think that's true. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he does get traded. Probably not, but I'll eat crow if he does. But I just don't think it makes any sense for them to trade him. And I also don't think a lot of other teams are going to be really wanting him at the deadline. If there's one defenseman you could maybe trade or want to, it's Jan Rutta. He's a luxury you just really don't even need right now. They didn't have to sign him for 3 years at, 2.75 of the offseason. You had a good top six. Even after the Petry trade, right? Dumoulin, Letang, because they weren't going to trade Dumoulin. Pettersson, Petry, Joseph, Ruedel, Freeman's right there. You usually could have walked into the season with that and let Jan Rutta go somewhere else. And again, that's almost $3 million more cap space. You take away that and Kasperi Kapanen's deal, that's over $6 million in cap space this summer. That's a Nino Niederreiter. Again, it goes back to Ron Hextall, why he really screwed up with a lot of decisions this summer. It goes back even further than that. But this team, they could have had a lot more cap space than they had going into this season. And it really screwed them by not having Ty Smith up to start the year, because had they had the cap space available to them, especially with Jan Rutta's case, had they didn't sign him or maybe Kapanen, he's probably up to start the year. And who knows where POJ is right now. Maybe he's the number 7 guy, but things could have been way different, to say the least. So that wraps up this segment when it comes to Jeff Petry and that rumor that I saw. Coming up in the third segment, we're going to get into something I heard during the Jeff Merrick show today, and why, please, Jeff Merrick, the Penguins do not need to add toughness at the deadline. I am so tired of hearing about this. I'm going to tell you why they do not need that at the deadline, and why the player that he suggested is just a ridiculous suggestion. But before I get to that, our next partner has a product I use literally every day. I started taking athletic greens because I never really have time in the morning. I want a better gut health, more energy, and all that good stuff. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of athletic greens, you're resorting 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, and probiotics to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All of those things. Apologies on that. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. It also has over 7,000 5-star reviews, and it costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day, and that's it. There's no need for a million different pills, supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Antoine Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Antoine Take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at _Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. My Twitter is just getting blown up right now. Did a trade happen or something? Or am I just like, people are just blowing up my mentions? Okay, no, it's just in reference to my Capital Suite, because that would have been funny if a trade broke while I was recording this. But no, Ron Hextall is still asleep at the wheel. I love listening to the Jeff Merrick Show. Let's start with this. Think he does a great job with it. He brings on Elliot Freeman. It's a segment I listen to every day while I'm working. Lets the time go by, helps my anxiety and all this stuff. It just takes my mind off a lot of things. My anxiety was really bad over the weekend, but having some better days these last couple of days, thankfully. But while I was listening, and his thumbnail for the episode he uploaded on Apple Podcasts was, should the Penguins add toughness? I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Am I going to have to listen to this? Yes, I'm going to have to listen to it. And I did. And his main takeaway from that game against the Islanders was thinking about Brian Burke and how they used to work with him and how he would be seething at how this team doesn't have enough toughness. And all I could do was this for those on YouTube. For the sound effect, people at home that are not watching on YouTube, that was just the sound effect. That was me face palming, because I am just like, that is the furthest thing this team needs right now. I am all for a player who brings a little bit of an edge, but they have to be able to play the sport of hockey. And the player that he named in this segment was, he's just spitballing here. The Penguins are probably not interested in, but he was like, he basically just says like, well, if I'm Brian Burke, I'm thinking when from Brian Burke's ears or Brian Burke's head, and I know how we used to work with him and stuff, maybe they're giving the Ottawa Senators a precursor recall about Austin Watson. And I'm like, Austin Watson? What? Like, let's just focus on the on-ice stuff here. The off-ice stuff, you all can look that up. That's a whole different story. Details are bad. I'll say that. Again, let's just focus on the on-ice stuff here. This season, 52 games, 4 goals, 6 points. That's the player y'all want to, Jeff Merrick wants to add to the Penguins' bottom 6? Hello? Is he an AI drone here? Or something like that? It makes no sense to me. His underlyings are also brutal. I know the Senators are not that good, but well below 50% in Corsi, well below 50% in scoring chances, well below in high danger chances as well. What? Like, the fan base and a lot of the media members have been saying, oh yeah, like third line center, maybe getting a goaltender, maybe a left-handed defenseman like Jacob Chikrin. That's a little bit of a lower possibility, but you all get catching my drift here. Jake McCabe, something like that. Just another, or again, those are the main ones that I think a lot of the fan base, a lot of the media members, including myself, have been saying. But toughness, just because Chris Letang and Evgeny Malkin were in the box once, I understand. The Islanders won that trade-off, and they win that 100% of the time. But this is not something that has gone on any time this season. It is very rare for the Penguin Stars to get that riled up. And again, I don't mind adding a little more snarl to the lineup and a third-line winger or third-line center, as long as they can actually contribute offensively in play. I don't need someone like a Tom Sestito or an Austin Watson coming in here or something like that. That's not going to improve the team's bottom 6. Austin Watson, he will make the bottom 6 worse. I understand Brock McGinn has gone 23 games without a goal. He is still probably better than Austin Watson. That is a sad reality. Kasperi Kapanen, he is maddening. He is better than Austin Watson. Jeff Carter, maybe the only player you could argue that is better than that Watson's better than is maybe Jeff Carter. Outside of that, maybe Teddy Blueger, but he's also, he's been washed all year. Outside of that, he's not even really a pure center. He would just play wing. There's no need for it. I had to bring that up on the show because I'm like, wait, again, strictly from an on-ice perspective, he doesn't bring anything that they need. That is so far down the list of deadline needs that are for this team, where it's like, what? Again, I know he's spitballing, and maybe I'm just overreacting a little bit, but it just makes no freaking sense. Silly season really does get the best of you sometimes, doesn't it? But no, I really wanted to touch on that today and just get into that for this final segment. All I can end with is this. This is a joke right now. GM's got to do something very soon. Tomorrow, it's going to be 9 days until the deadline. It's crunch time here. Got some tough games coming up. The Oilers are coming to town on Thursday. We're going to preview that game on Wednesday. It's going to be very tough to win, obviously, but got the Blues after that. Got a lot of tough games next week. Got Tampa. I got Tampa Bay on Sunday, I believe. You go to Nashville next week. Put up or shut up time, man. Got to start winning some games, banking some points. GM's got to come out and help this team. I will also say this one more time. For the people that think they're probably going to sell at the deadline, I got some bad news for you. Ron Hextall keeps doing these interviews. He just did one with Peter LeBrun. They're not going to sell. They're not going to sell. Unless they lose every game until the end of next Friday. And even then, maybe. It could still theoretically be in the race. I still don't think he's going to sell. I think it's more likely that he would stand pat and punt on this season than sell. I still think he is going to add a piece or two. I don't know if it's going to be a blockbuster, but I still think he is going to come out of his shell, come out of hiding, and make a move to help this team. We'll just have to see what it is. I know your confidence level in him is probably lower than mine. Well, it's probably about the same as mine, I should say, but it's time. There's no excuses. Mr. Passive needs to come out and make a deal ASAP. It's past time because this team has never felt more in danger in terms of missing the playoffs than it has right now in the Gino era. And I'm going to end with that. So thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it. Tomorrow, we're going to preview the game against the Edmonton Oilers. And then Thursday, we'll recap it. And then Friday, we'll get you set for this weekend's slate against the Blues and the Lightning. So thank you all so much for listening. Really appreciate it. I'll talk with you all again on Wednesday. Have a great night.